Do you remember me telling you about looking at the forest and altering the resolution in the settings part of YouTube, where instead of looking at it HD or 1040, reduce it to 720 or 460? And this is about the quality. This is the area called quality. So if ever you see fallen trees or anything like that, if you look at it in a lower resolution, it's amazing what you see. So if I just focus on that, you can do some screenshots if you wish, but if I just focus on that, and you can alter the resolution, and just have a good look, see how many faces you see, reduce the resolution. So drop the quality from 1040, from HD, because we always film in HD, drop that to 720 or below, or 460. So have you done that? Hopefully you've done that. So in this direction, dead center of screen. Each time, look dead center of screen, like there. And again there. And there. Isn't it amazing? Altering the resolution and the quality seems to give us much more clarity. And I don't know why it is we see it in the branches and the soft foliage of the trees, but I think it's to do with the energy. Yet again, I think it's the energy of the trees. I'm getting another one showing more clearly over here. Isn't that remarkable? And you may see completely differently to how I'm seeing it. You might not be able to pick out the same things as me. We're about up there. Can you see that really large one up there? Right in the centre there. It's just a thought. So these are some of the questions that have been in the comments section. Janet. So this was from the video called Bigfoot Lil Ears. And I was trying, this is where I had a time loss. And I did not realise this. Janet pointed it out, and I've had to go back over it and watch it. So she says, I wonder if you got into a time warp somehow. I have this image like you walked into an elevator-like device that closed behind you and you were temporarily offline and unaware. It reopened and you stepped back out in exactly the same place, not noticing the time lapse. Strangeless indeed. Now, I find that absolutely fascinating because this is what Dacia Gaya described to us as a sidestep. I pointed this out in a video I did a few months back, where pleats of time, and the image he showed me was of a kilt, a Scottish kilt, and the pleat in the time was like the pleat in a kilt. And I thought that was a fantastic description of what occurred. So I'm wondering if that is indeed the case here. I was totally unaware of any time lapse. It was only when I looked at my watch and I thought, that can't be right. But as I've explained before, I once had a 5-hour gap and had absolutely no explanation for that either. But yeah, when I look at the video, Janet, you're right. I do appear to have wandered into La La Land. Oh dear. So, well spotted. I think, yeah, there's something about these loops in time, and I'm sure how interesting. We have right above us, and I don't know whether you're probably not going to be able to see it, but there is a really big raptor. This is really interesting, that when you, in the scheme of things, we've spoken about this before, crows are the gossips, crows are the messengers. They will bring messages backwards and forwards and basically check on you, see, pass information backwards and forwards. And they are at the behest of others. They will do that. But the eagles, the big raptors like that, and that was a big raptor that flew over, they're the king of the bunch. And when I'm talking about time, I frequently see them. It's very strange. They don't take orders from anybody. They give the orders. So, another question Janet asks is, I can imagine, she's referring to the glyphs we have on the ground. She says, I can imagine that each cluster of glyphs and stickery are a full letter of information for other forest people passing by. So we might take a piece of paper, write all over it, and leave it down, pin it to a tree and leave it as a note for anybody else wishing to know this, that or the other, or leaving directions for somebody else. And that is exactly what glyphs do. Some of them carry energy regarding areas, but I think mainly they're informational. And this is why I suggest in my thoughts that it comes from either Ogham, spelt Ogham, or a mixture of, a hybrid of, the Futhark that we see. And I believe it's a mixture of all of these things, that regardless of who you are, what time space you come from, this can be read. It's a universal language, like Latin used to be a universal language. And that's what I think. And as I've said that, partially correct. That's what I've heard. And who's assisting me here? This is Athenian. Thank you, Athenian. She's saying partially correct. Can you assist more with that? So, right. What Athenian is saying is that anybody from any era, any time space, any dimension can read it and access it, but they also retain and keep energy. So if they have an energetic purpose to them. I think the only explanation I could put that, would that be like a portal would be a good description. Similar, she's saying. So if they have a doing energy attached to them, that is retained. Whether you come from this dimension, another dimension, whatever era, whatever time space. So if this forest is here now, but happens to be several centuries in the future, in a different dimension, who says that another dimension is on the same time plan as we are? We might be stepping back in time for them. We might be stepping forward in time. Does that really mix it up? It might do, and I hope it wasn't intentional, but I might just have mixed things up a bit there. We're quite used to the idea there might be a different dimension, but are we used to the idea, or prepared for the idea, that their time might be ahead of ours, eons ahead of ours? It might be eons behind us. Who knows? And I'm getting a very firm, we are ahead of you, my dear. Alright, so we can synchronize at any time. We can be with you now. We could have been with you yesterday. We cannot alter your future. We can show you glimpses of things past, present and future, but we cannot alter your future. Wow. Thank you. So Janet, that was a lovely observation. Thank you for that. Larry. Now on the spiral video, Larry, you said after those very bad floods in Kentucky in the USA, they drained off that rescue recovery people found wolfmen and, you've put schemas, drowned bodies. This was near Kentucky and the Tennessee state line. Does anybody else have any information about that? That's interesting. And I wonder if they were removed by their own beings, or whether the authorities came in, removed all traces of them and said, they were bears. You saw bears. I wonder. Another question from Larry. Larry, you say, ask them if they use energy from nuclear plants. Very clearly, yes, we do. I'm going to ask the question, how do you gather energy from nuclear plants? Right. Very clearly, they leak. They leak. Well, that's a thought and a half, that nuclear plants leak energy. Well, she's saying we have natural radiation in our bodies. More to do with portal energy and transmission. Transmission of thought creates heat. Great question, Larry. Also, Larry asks in that same video, he asked, what activates a portal? And I understand electromagnetic energy. Created from within. Our bodies can do that. Now, my next question to Athenian would be, can all of you do that? No, special permission is needed. Special permission is needed. Right, that seems reasonable. Alice Sheevley, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. This is on the video, spelt Ogham, but I understand it's called So Alice Sheevely, and this is in the video. When you lose time, do you never get any understanding of what happened? Do your dreams explain anything? That is very interesting and makes me curious what is happening while you are in the portal or passing through. I have a feeling you are getting information you aren't aware of yet. Absolutely, 100%. I have no knowledge of what happens when these time lapses occur. I have no information whatsoever. If I suddenly start getting headaches during the night or during the daytime, sometimes that is like a download of energy. And I think what they're doing is explaining things to me. So when I come to see something that I can't explain, suddenly it occurs to me. And as a human being, we think, we've just thought of something. And I think it's an idea that's been placed there. So it's the human failing. Oh, look, that must be this. When in fact it's a download of information. So I think you are right, Alice. I believe that that's quite possibly exactly what is happening. But I have no knowledge of it. I couldn't tell you what I see or what happens. I don't even know it occurs. I know that after the last incident, that watch that I have, it's an Armani watch, a good watch, a nice watch, stopped. And it's now gone to the watch hospital to see what's wrong with it. Probably an overload of magnetic. So Audrey, and this is Audrey's question from the video as well. I know when you were explaining the double triangle, your voice repeated it and got louder. Could this be the portal site? I believe you're correct. And this is really what Janet was saying about I seem to zone out and wander off into La La Land. Like I say, I cannot explain it. Another thing I will say, when I do this, frequently when I'm talking about something, if I have looked back at the video or when I come to edit the video, I have absolutely no knowledge of some of the things that I was saying to you. Can't remember saying them. I cannot remember speaking. And that, it doesn't happen all the time. It's the odd videos that occurs. And I wonder if I've had the time lapse in those and that's what's come from it. That sounds like, you know, you're knitting with one needle, that you're going slightly mad. But it's just bizarre. It really is bizarre to have no knowledge of something that you've, especially if you are, when I'm talking with a Fenian, I'm glad it's on video because I might well have not necessarily forgotten it, but been unaware of the conversation later on. And I usually come to edit these, like the video today will be edited, probably start this evening, over the next 3 days. So it's a bit bizarre. Favourite word, bizarre. So the next question, this is in the video The Gathering, and Audrey says, do they go by the planet's vibration when in that alignment for their important gatherings? So she's saying it's similar to vibration, but not the same. With your healing, Audrey, I wonder if you work off energy all the time, or vibration, or a mixture of both, or colour, or senses that you're unaware of, but you know work for you somehow. Right. Athenian says sometimes it's gravitational, has the same effect as gravitational. So at the moment, now that Jupiter is really, really close, are you getting energy from Jupiter? She says, yes, we do, but we don't really use that. Is that because Jupiter doesn't serve you? Right, we're more star energy. We're star people, more star energy than planetary energy. So on expanding our knowledge, that was quite a while back, a couple of months back, Rachel King comments, and she says, this was great information. I do sense that their field or radar-like capabilities are definitely magnetically pulsed, but this also attributes to their capabilities using ultrasound and infrasound as well. Well, Athenian's just really backed that up before, hasn't she? So if a portal is magnetically charged, perhaps the sound we hear is in that pulsation also. Right. So it's the sound of the magnetic, Rachel's saying here, rather than an actual sound like somebody clumping around. Anku has pointed me to a 1.6 gigahertz being attributed to cloaking specifically, but to travel also. This leads me to wonder if they aren't beings of sound itself, with their multiple vocal cord capabilities, as well as their broad use of portals, the vibratory patterns of nature itself. If the universe itself was created by the word, sound, perhaps they're a magnificent display of that essence itself. Wow. Thank you, Rachel. That's a great explanation. Oh, and that's a spider. I'm not going that way. Athenian's saying, I don't really have anything to add to that. Well, there you go, Rachel. You bang on the money, as ever. Thank you. Seriously, Sydney. Are you from Australia by any chance? So seriously, Sydney has said, I leave a recorder out at night and sometimes I will hear a humming or a buzzing sound on the recording. It's not an insect or hummingbird, which comes and goes very quickly, and it always seems to be near or after dark. That I think is really interesting. I had this occur in this direction, and I was on my way to the old moon moth site before the big storm last year, and all the way pretty much from when I'd parked up for an hour's walk, I could hear this lower than that, more incidental, more not quite as obvious, but I could absolutely hear it. And it didn't matter which direction I was in, I could hear it, and it went on and on and on. And I stopped because I was curious. I was saying, what is that? And I wasn't running my my camera at the time. I wish I had been. I don't know if it would have picked it up. I said, what is that sound? So my last question was from Christy. And Christy asks, what is the difference between the forest people and the Fae? Athenian is saying, I need to be very careful here what I'm saying because I don't want to get this wrong. They're two different species, completely different species. And they occupy different dimensions, though they can pass in a shared dimension. I understand that our dimension is one of their shared dimensions. The Fae are very proud peoples, what we would term spiritual. And she's saying very powerful beings. So they have different powers. They do communicate. See, they do communicate together. Now our Fae leader around here. I understand that the Fae are more ancient beings. They reside more in our past. From our past. We sort of lump stuff together because we don't understand it. But that's the theory anyways. They have different purpose, different places. They reside within different dimensions, although they can communicate within our dimension as well as passing through in other dimensions in common. But on the whole, they don't reside in the same dimension. They're a different species. It's like trying to compare, perhaps, a human being with a meerkat. Both can stand and walk on two legs. Both have 2 eyes and 2 ears, but we're not the same. Just because we walk on 2 legs and we have 2 eyes and 2 ears, we're not the same. It's like the dog and camel. Both have hair. Both have 4 legs. Both have 2 ears. Both have a mouth, 2 eyes and a nose, but they're not the same. They don't even look the same. But they do have things in common. So we can't comparing apples with pears. That's what it is. We're comparing apples with pears. And I just want to acknowledge the leader of the Fae while I'm here and say good afternoon. And I hope he is very well. Always good to acknowledge him. I don't want to bother him unnecessarily, but also I guess I best acknowledge other beings as well who we have conversed with. Imraeus, as we have conversed with him. Elfin, the Elfin, we have conversed with them. So just acknowledging other beings here who have assisted us. And I think it's sort of like a united front now where they can assist us all together. And we appreciate that and just want to acknowledge them, say thank you. And I would really like to acknowledge Athenian and say thank you for helping us with these questions. These are questions I kind of had missed for some reason. And so isn't it wonderful to be able to all get together and do this and have a little trot through the forest? So I'm now going to head off home and we'll have a look at this video later and see just what we see. It's very funny, as I've been talking to you and when I am talking with Athenian, I am getting pulsing in my hand. That interests me because that's like energy passing through my hand. So thank you for joining me this week, and I hope that you all have a lovely week and wish you peace and joy. And we're stepping into the cooler times, unless you're in Australia and you're about to get toasty and warm. So take care, my friends, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now. Bye.